Thanks for coming out this evening. Today we've got guest speakers from ARC Surveys. They're going to be covering kind of your common things to watch out for, some of the common issues they run into, and a little bit about development. I'll hand it over to all of you. Okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Come on over.
Thank you. They were excited.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to you guys. I'll let you introduce.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming out, guys. We're excited to be here. As was mentioned, we are from ARC Land Surveys. We're a land surveying company in Calgary and Edmonton, and we deal a lot with property transactions, developers, builders, architects, and just the general public buying a home and wanting to know, what can I do on this property? Can I develop? Can I do a backyard suite, even a basement suite, and what's involved in that? And with surveying, we're really usually the first call that people need to make, because whether you have an RPR or not, you need to get a survey to see what you can do and what's legal on the property. With us tonight, we have the lovely Janet, who oversees business development, marketing, client engagement, and so many other things. So it's great to have her here. Also Riel, who's one of our Alberta land surveyors and partners, and he's an expert in anything land surveying. He dreams about it, he thinks about it. He's written all the bylaws for the city about it. Not quite, but if you have difficult questions or you have anything you want to know development-wise, Riel's your guy. So we find these presentations work great with just interaction. Marvin, hey, just recognized you there. Good to see you. We work with Marvin, great architect, love his homes. If you're looking for somebody to design for you, this guy. yeah, no soliciting, but I'm doing it for him, so it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, we're gonna get started and get rolling. Please ask questions, raise your hands. We just love to educate, and we do this for realtors and for investors and for lawyers and real estate institutions all over the province. So let's get going. A little bit of an agenda. We'll do a quick introduction. We'll talk about what an RPR shows, development permit surveys, what kind of a development permit you need for a new build in Calgary, our construction survey timeline, so kind of every stage of the construction process that is required. And then we love leaving just these bad investment properties to the end, and just some lemons and some things that we've really seen come up over the years, where a property was bought and they didn't get an RPR, or a property was bought and they didn't do a proper due diligence, and then they couldn't develop, etc. So we're excited about that. All right, who we are. As I mentioned, Riel is in the house today. Janet is also. We've got Jackie, myself, Chen, Halen, Jared, just some of our high-level staff at the office, either ALSs or draftsperson, business development, etc. We are 45 now, 45 strong, 2 locations, and have been operating for 13 years now, I believe. We specialize in the residential kind of infill market when it comes to construction, so we've seen a lot of things. As I just mentioned, what we do, everything from the real property report, which you will likely see if you're doing a real estate transaction, condo plans, infill construction surveys, as-built surveys, development permit surveys, subdivisions, property lines, and underground utility surveys also are locating. Just a few of the things that we like to do. All right, we're gonna get into what is an RPR and who needs one. And feel free to jump in, guys, if you have anything else that you want to mention. So an RPR is an official land survey. And that's, I'll stop right there just to mention, a lot of times when we see real estate transactions happen, whether it's a seller or a buyer, they might say, well, you know what, what's this RPR thing? Why do I need it, right? It is actually a certified land survey, a copyright document. So it's a very important document that is required in the Alberta real estate contract when you're transacting with a home in that. And it is created by a certified Alberta land surveyor, identifying property boundaries, structures, according to the manual standard of practice. That's our manual standard of practice as Alberta land surveyors, and local municipal bylaws. So in Calgary, we know the bylaws really, really well as pertaining to real property reports in that. So We show the structures on the property as pertaining to the bylaws and our manual standard practice. Who needs one? Everybody from top of the list. Marvin here. He might buy a property and say, hey, Tim Rail, I need a real property report before I even put an offer on this property. Contractors, developers call us up. Realtors who are looking at lots for their clients, if they're a developer, will call us up and say, look, we're looking at this lot, we'd like to get an RPR done on it for due diligence. And we're going to show you down the slides here at the end a lot that we had an RPR done on that a developer was looking at, and when they saw the RPR, they just like hands off and walked away from the property and saved themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars because of what the RPR revealed. So lawyers, real estate agents, designers, property owners, and of course, finance companies, banks, mortgages, and that. Yeah.
Yeah, an RPR basically provides transparency for the property, right? You look at a property, you see a fence, you assume that's the property line. That is not always the case. And also utility right-of-ways, lots of different right-of-ways that go underground that you'll need to know about before you start doing any work on a property. And it's good to know because you'll see some real lemons that you would want to avoid.
Absolutely. Any questions so far? Marvin.
What is the process? So you do the survey.
Yeah.
And then it gets certified. You have to send that RPR. This was very different than like a DP survey.
Yeah, for sure.
That has to go to the city for a stamp of compliance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't provide the compliance.
No.
So that someone at the city then looks at that, and you've noted that anything that crosses over a property or goes into a setback or whatever utility, and they have to stamp it. So you automatically have to send it. That's part of the process to the city.
No, it's not part of the process to automatically. You can submit it. You can get the RPR. You can look at it. You can throw in the garbage. But you can, if you're doing a real estate transaction, you'll want for due diligence to take that RPR, give it to the city, have them review it, and stamp it with compliance and enforcement.
So you don't put the compliance.
No, we do not.
No, as Janet mentioned, the real estate contract states an RPR, visible improvements on it, or with city or municipal compliance, right? Now that's in there just to protect the buyer because they're saying, like, we have an RPR, which is great, created by a land surveyor, but now let's send it to the city and have the city look at it and say, was the house built in the right location? Was the deck built in the right location in the garage? So that's where the compliance comes in. Two separate things. So land surveyors were doing the RPR, as Janet mentioned. The city does the compliance. Completely optional, as Janet mentioned. You do not have to do it. We do have people who choose not to. And if you're developing a property, you're going to tear that house down usually. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, I'm going to get an RPR because I want to see like the distance of my property lines, how big the lot is. I don't care about compliance because everything on the property is going. So, and if we submit RPRs with no buildings on them, the city just sends them back and says, can't do anything with this. Mm-hmm. So, all right, a lot has changed over the years. Believe it or not, these are the exact two properties. You can see an RPR, a real property report for 1983. This one probably hand-drawn. And then you can see what's happened up to 2025. So a lot of more information is going on this property to give you guys more knowledge of what's on the property, where it's located, and is it within the bylaws. Yeah. All right, pre-purchase, why you would like an RPR, need an RPR. We'll go through a couple of these bullet points. Whether you're making an investment on an income property or planning to a new build, you want full transparency about the property before making the purchase. Very important, and we'll continue to touch on that as we go through some of those property lemons that we discuss. Several phases of the construction project require a land survey, i.e. planning, design, site preparation, construction, project completion, and each phase involves key measures and ensures that the property is developed within the permitted land use bylaws, and you'll want to be aware of the following. So RPRs really identify, in a nutshell, boundaries. Just where are your property lines? We see it all the time. So for example, let's say you're not going to develop that property. You love the house, you're buying as an investment property, but you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to do a little bit of renovations on this. I'm going to spruce up the landscaping. I'm going to do some garden beds, a water feature, some landscaping and that kind of thing. I'll put a shed in the back, and you don't have an RPR. well, you're going to be standing maybe on the side of the sidewalk here. The grass is here. You're looking at this and you're like, great. Landscaping here, water feature here, barbecue or pizza oven here, right? But you don't know that there's about maybe up to 3 meters from the sidewalk inside that grass that's city property. And you're only going to know that by seeing your RPR, because the property boundaries are shown there and the boundary of city property up to the sidewalk and up to the road. And many people do build within that city property, which is often a right-of-way, a utility right-of-way. And then if you go to, question.
How do you guys figure out where the city is? Like a database?
Yeah, so how it works is, so we send field surveyors to the field. And in Alberta, what governs the property boundaries are actual physical marks in the ground. These are iron posts. They could be drill holes that a land surveyor placed and registered on a plan. So a field crew goes to the field, they find the physical posts and they measure those, and those will start creating these lines. And they find enough of them, you can start calculating your boundaries. Now, not every property, like your home may not have 4 posts in the corner. Some communities, only the block corners are posted, or curved sections only, the straightaways are not posted. And so you read the original survey plans, you do some research, and then you find out where these invisible lines are, and then we just start drafting them, and everything is related to the field measurements with their total stations or their GPS, and you start plunking where the house is relative to these property lines, and you start creating yourself a drawing, which is ultimately what is presented to the buyer.
Yeah, great question.
And it's a good question, because a lot of times it gets surveyors in trouble, because what we're doing is we're in and around the neighborhood and we're digging holes in people's yards.
Yeah.
And they're like, excuse me? We're like, sorry, we're doing a survey. And they're like, the house that's for sale is 5 doors down. Why are you digging my yard? It's because some posts have been knocked out, covered by their driveway. Fences have been covering them up, and so we're going next door, next door, next door, and they're walking around with metal detectors, like blind people. They're just like, where's the post? And then they find them, they start digging a hole, and it's 3, 4, doors down. And so you'll see that around the city. If you're driving around, you see surveyors walking around. That's what they're doing. They're looking for these posts that are in the ground. In other places, in other countries, it's not even survey posts in the ground. It could be a coordinate-based system, and everything is just pumped out on your GPS. So it's just really different on jurisdiction and where you are. But in Alberta, that's how it rolls. Yeah, good question.
Definitely.
For sure.
Has anybody built something on their property, then went to sell it, and realized that they built right within a city right away, or on city property, or they built their fence into city property, and then it showed up?
Someone on the phone did.
All good.
Issue with the deck once, actually.
Issue with the deck, yeah.
Yeah, a foot too close from the back alley.
Yeah.
From the rear property.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the setbacks, number 3 here. So the city does have rules and bylaws of where you can place things on property, decks included, right? They have a certain number of meters that the property line needs to be to the deck and that. So oftentimes we see people, they don't get the building permit for the deck. And so they just build out a nice deck and that kind of thing. They go to sell the property. A land survey company will come and do an RPR, because there's a real estate transaction happening now. And it'll get sent to the city. The city reviews for compliance, and they say, oh yeah, like Anthony mentioned, hey, your deck is built too close to the property line. So those are things that RPRs reveal. Objects that are in the right of way, you want to keep those clear. We often have concrete swales running through the backs of properties. If you're looking at a property, if you're an investor walking around, you'll see that concrete swale. Just imagine an imaginary line like 1.5 meters out from that concrete swale. That is a city right away. If they ever had to do maintenance on that concrete swale, they're allowed to come in, they have a right away there. So you might see something back there like a large shed or a garage or something like that. So it's just things to keep in mind. Is that a city right away, and is that object sitting in there?
And one thing to note is, if you're a developer, you're looking at a property to buy, to build something on, just remember that you're the buyer, and it's actually the seller that has to arrange for the survey, pay for the survey. After they're done paying the survey company, submit it to the city for compliance. It's all on them. So if you're a buyer, and you hear about title insurance, and that's starting to be popular in some provinces, don't accept that in lieu of an RPR. Because the RPR is a drawing, it's a usable drawing that from day one you can give to your designer, they can start their design. But if you accept a property with just title insurance, you're not getting the drawing that we're talking about, you don't know where the fences are, you don't know where all these features are, and it's free. So just ask for it from the seller, say, nope, we need an RPR as per that sales contract, and don't have the realtor scribe it out. We just see that happen too many times, and buyers buy something, they have no idea what they're getting, and then problems arise, and we can show you in some of those examples later on.
Exactly. Building off that, so let's say you do buy a property for an investment and you are going to build a backyard suite or an addition or something like that, and maybe you decided, I don't want the RPR, I'm just going to do the transaction, we'll go with title insurance or something like that. Well, once you want to build something on that property, guess who you're going to call? And guess what you're going to get? An RPR. Because in Calgary, the RPR is the standard survey document for any small addition on the property. So the city, as soon as you start filling out your building permits, or you hire maybe a designer and say, look, we're going to do a backyard suite, they're going to say, great, do you have a land survey? Do you have a real property report? So it's not just something that is used for a real estate transaction and then stuffed in the filing drawer. It's something that is going to continue to be used all throughout the process of that home. If you are replacing your fences, a good fence contractor shouldn't just put the fence right where the old one is. He should say, hey, do you have a real property report? Because the dimensions of where the fence is and is it on the property line are on the real property report. I don't think we have on this set of slides, but we see RPRs all the time where you see property lines like this and the fence is over here. And so you're using 3 feet of your neighbor's property or vice versa. He has no idea. Very, very common in Calgary, in Edmonton, and especially rural properties. Fences can be off by 15, 20 meters. Yes?
I have this problem actually.
You have this problem. Is the fence on your side or the neighbor's side?
Actually, I think it's on my side. Like
That's okay.
a foot and a half
Yeah.
in my land, the fences.
Yeah.
What is the solution in this situation?
So the main thing is that it's identified. So even that RPR you submit to the city, they don't get involved in neighbor-to-neighbor fence ownership. You say, hey, city, this neighbor's fence is, or it's on my property. They're like, I don't care, you know. But you know now, and when it is time to build a new fence, you know that you should move it over. We just did an RPR a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine, and I looked at the RPR when we were done, and I phoned him. I'm like, how long have you lived here? He's like, 8 years. I'm like, did you know that 4 feet of your yard, on the long side, not the short side, of his property, 4 feet is in your yard? So you could have had a 4 foot bigger yard these last 8 years for your kids to play or yada, yada, yada. He's like, I had no idea. I'm like, review your RPR, find out where that fence is. And the problem is, unfortunately, right before selling his home, he had a brand new fence built in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
So if he would have got the RPR first, then it's like, oh great, let's build that new fence and let's make my yard 4 feet wider from here to there. Like
Push
it was.
for the sale. I mean,
What if the
you
neighbor refused?
They can't. So that's a great question. Can the neighbor refuse? No. So by law, you're allowed to put it right on the property line.
Yeah.
Now, if you're building it, you're paying for it out of pocket yourself, and the neighbor doesn't want to go 50-50, they're just ghosting you, then some people are like, okay, I'm going to put a little bit on my side so I can say it's mine, don't ever touch it, and that's legit. You'll see some properties around town, it's like there's a fence here, and there's a fence right here. And one's like a chain link, and one's a white picket, and the neighbors just had different preferences of what it wanted to look like. So you see that. But yeah, that's a great question. And we do run into that, it's common. But the more RPRs we do, the more we're catching these things. And they're just self-correcting, and one property at a time over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got an email in April, and it was from a lawyer who wanted us to do an RPR. The original fence plan was built off of a sketch from the county of Ponoka, which everyone knows is super reliable. So there was actually, I think it was like 30 meters or 30 feet?
Yeah, it was a significant distance.
And so they were suing the original sellers from 2 years, the sellers from 2 years ago for $60,000, claiming misrepresentation.
Yeah, over a fence that just is not on the property line. Yeah.
Regarding the city, if you build a deck, say, you need to keep distance from the next property.
Yeah.
And if you build it inappropriately or not in compliance,
Yeah.
and you're selling,
Yeah.
would you have to adjust the deck?
No, so they won't make you like cut that deck down and throw that section away. That's the great thing about the city. When you do apply for compliance, they charge you a $189 fee to review your property. They don't look for anything inside. No electrical permits, no plumbing permits, no building permits inside. It's just outside. That's all they're looking for during that stage. So they have no idea if you built an illegal suite or not or anything like that. But they are looking at a deck, for instance. So let's say it's too close to the rear property line or the side. Then they just let us know. They say, hey, you're not getting compliance on this RPR. Here's the next steps. The cost is completely free. They don't charge you anything else. and they do what they call a relaxation of the bylaw that would govern that deck. And it's basically like a development permit, like you were to do it in the beginning before you built the deck. So they relax the bylaw for that deck. It's free, and it takes about 3 months to do. In 3 months' time, your lawyer will get an RPR with compliance on it, and you're good to go. And in that time, the houses sell, right? And sometimes there are a small holdback until you can prove that, hey, the city is working on it, and here's the RPR with compliance.
Yeah, what are the parameters for getting a relaxation? Like, are there certain situations that it's not approved versus others, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question, and the city's quite generous.
Yeah.
So we never start pulling out saws. We never have to start removing things. They're pretty good that way. Whether it's a pergola that covers your deck and it's too much coverage, or it's not attached to the house, or whatever the case may be. So we find when we do apply for relaxation, it's like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
We just wait it out, and then we get the green light. And so it's a little bit scary at first because they call it a refusal letter, and you're kind of like, ooh, ouch, refusal letter. But it's not that scary.
Yeah.
And we just have to wait it out and get it relaxed, like Tim said.
Yeah.
Now, there are cases when we start talking about an encroachment. So this is things that go outside your property into the city property. So they don't care about if you're outside of your property into the neighbor so much. Again, they don't really get into neighbor-neighbor disputes. They kind of back off. But if you build your fence 5 feet into the city property, then there's a fee associated. So it's like, okay, you did that, but now you owe us $500 or
Yeah.
$800 or $900. And really, the more you encroach, ding, 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 the price goes up.
Yeah.
And then very rarely for encroachments, and this is if you're encroaching, let's say, a fence into a municipal reserve, a park, a green space, and behind your home, every once in a while it's mandatory removal. And those are hard phone calls. It's like, hey, yeah, it's a nice fence, but the city says absolutely mandatory. You have to prove that it's removed or moved onto the property line and provide photos and proof of it. And then we'd have to update the RPR.
Yeah.
But that's very rare. And so even if you see an encroachment stamp on the RPR, it's generally, okay, you throw a little bit of money at it, kind of sucks, but you're not moving features. The buyer is not blindsided when they show up and all of a sudden a shed's gone. They're like, whoa, what happened? So they're pretty good that way. City of Edmonton, a little bit different. We won't talk about that, but City of Calgary is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think a thing to note too is when you get the RPR back and you might see an encroachment, there is the option to remove it, right? So there are times when the
Yeah.
fees will be super high and you're like, I can just remove it. It could be like a decorative fence or a garden bed. And then you just send that back and get compliance.
Yeah, exactly. So shorter answer is, if it's on city property, they do care and they give you the option to remove it or pay. If it's on your property, they care, but it's a free option and it just takes some time to go through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we are dealing with builders and developers, they do like to see the RPR because they know they're going to be digging a big hole and they want to see where those fences are. How much room do we have? Because sometimes you get like really upset neighbors. We had one call, it was like 3 weeks ago. She's like, I just woke up and looked outside and my entire fence is gone. I'm like, what
Yes,
is going
I remember
on?
that.
Next door neighbor, they're digging a big hole without telling her, without her permission, without consent. Fence completely gone. And we had old photos of it. And she's like, do you have an old copy of an RPR? Luckily, we found one. The RPR proved that the fence was along the property line. So now the developer should have really called them. It's one thing if the fence was well inside the developer's side. Guess what? Lawsuit. Lawyers involved, developer going like this, site on hold. It's just, it can get pretty gnarly. So,
Yeah.
But as a developer, a deck is encroaching or whatever, so I'm ripping everything out. The house is going, the garage is going, we're ripping everything out. Who cares? You can accept an RPR with a little encroachment knowing what you're about to do on the property. So there's some leeway there and give and take. You don't have to necessarily get every encroachment dealt with if you know what you're planning on doing on the property.
Absolutely. So to summarize, if you're purchasing a home just for an investment property, you're going to do a build on it, or if it's just simply a real estate transaction, you definitely want to go the safe route and make sure you have an RPR from your seller, or if you don't have one, then get one from an Alberta Land Surveying Company. Their uses are going to go into the future for a garage permit, small home renovations, accessory buildings, garage and basement suites. Even if you're doing a basement suite, you might say, well, that's inside. Why do I need a real property report? Well, if it's not a walkout, you're going to be putting a staircase down the side. And the city has rules about where you can put that. And they're going to want to see an RPR. Where's that staircase that's concrete going to be? So it's a very, very valuable product that continues to perform throughout the years.
How much does it cost to have RPR?
Oh, absolutely. Roughly about $500 for an RPR for a standard home in Calgary. When we get into large homes or rural properties, then they change from there.
but free for you as the buyer. So
Yeah. So got
ask
it.
for it, otherwise you won't get it.
Question?
Kind of wondering, like, how, like, if the seller provides an RPR that was dated like 2018,
Yeah.
would you recommend getting a new one, or how would that?
Depends on your comfortability and what your plans are for that lot. So we deal with builders all the time. They look at an RPR from 2018, fence is the same, everything else is getting ripped out, I could care less. If you want to move into it and you want to rent it out, investment property, then you probably want to get it updated. There could be some changes to it. Maybe there's an AC unit now, maybe there's extra decks, extra retaining walls, that sort of thing. So it really depends on how comfortable you are. At the end of the day, the buyer decides, and they're working with their lawyer. And so you have those conversations. I don't like getting into, oh, you got to update everything. Oh, we just put up a basketball hoop update. Oh, we just change a little planter garden update. Like, I don't get into that. It's like, it's got to be significant enough that it makes a difference with the city's opinion or a land surveyor's professional opinion on the property. So it's a conversation.
And really, it's a conversation with your realtor too. Like, Tim and I go around and we teach realtors what to look for, and we get emails all the time. So you can talk to your realtor, they can email us, send us pictures, and we'll give you our opinion so that you have an informed you can make an informed decision to know whether some of the additions that you're seeing might qualify for an update. So I'm going to touch on the zoning because it is a pretty hot topic right now as we get into the mayoral election coming up in the fall. So I have had the pleasure of working with the Inner City Builders Association. We featured all the mayoral candidates. They came, they answered some questions and really spoke about what their plans are, because we know that the blanket rezoning has been quite a contentious issue. Back in July, my understanding was that the appeals for development permits was sitting at about 82. The record is 85 in a year. So we're definitely seeing a lot of communities appealing the developments that they're seeing going up. As far as where do the appeals go? So they go to the Alberta Bench of Appeal, and there is a merit test. So based on previous numbers, only about 25% of those appeals actually go forward to the court process, and the 75% are thrown out. And there are, if you're a developer and you're kind of like feeling hesitant, like what's going to happen with the city, my understanding is that there's 2 candidates that want to maintain the blanket rezoning. There's 3 that want to repeal. However, given that there are people that are actively investing in building right now, there will most likely be a grandfathering process. But it does come down to, who's going to be in office and what decision they're going to make. And really, in terms of the impact, it's going to repeal it back to a longer process for a lot of those developments. Do you want to hit the next slide?
Questioner here.
Explain what is the blanket rezoning?
Oh, well, here.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically in Calgary, they did blanket rezoning, so they've automatically allowed, so a lot of these development permits that were taking a year to process through the city administration became part of this blanket rezoning, and so they've basically skipped that year process of it going through the city.
Yes.
You go for it.
So typically before the blanket rezoning, the 2 most popular zoning for a property is either RC1 or RC2. Means you can only build 1 house on it, or you can build 2 houses on it and split it in half with a subdivision. With the RCG blanket rezoning, every lot now you can build up to 4 units, townhouse, plus an additional 4 suited basements, to a total of 8 potential tenants, 8 new cars on the street for every lot, as opposed to 1 house or 2 houses. And so your neighbor now is probably RCG, and they can any day tear down their home and build a 4-unit townhouse with an additional 4 rental units in the basement. So that's why it's contentious, especially in inner city. All of a sudden these developments are going up, parking gets congested, everything just gets tighter with higher density. So that's what this is. And if they repeal it, you go back to RC1 or RC2, you can just rezone it. You apply like we had to do a year or 2 ago. You just rezone it, you pay $10,000 or $20,000 to help a designer do that, and you get it to where it's at RCG. And so if you bought a property already and it reverts back, it's just a longer process, like Janet mentioned. But for the most part, the city will allow it if you go through that process. But they just did everyone in the entire city a favor, or not, of just blanketing the whole city RCG. And they did it in Edmonton, is it 5 years ago? I don't know how many. And and it's still holding. So we really don't know how it's going to go in Calgary.
Yeah.
But that's what the blanket rezoning is.
Yeah.
Problematic for the homeowners, good for the investors.
You got it. Good
Yeah.
for the investors and not so good for the homeowners. Well, yeah, especially you've been living there for 50 years and all of a sudden there's just all new cars, all new, developments going up on your street. Yep. And another thing too, a year ago you'd have to buy the property. You're paying a mortgage for an entire year while you're waiting for the rezoning process. So that's a whole year of your paying and the land is just sitting there. And so now it's done. You buy it and you're ready to start talking about development permits and applications at the city, which we'll talk about. So it's a pretty big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we can take
All
it
right.
away.
Okay, so maybe I'll get that laser light too, see how that shows up.
Oh, nice.
All right. Okay. So right now we're talking about buying a property so you can actually develop on it. The only survey you have seen so far would be that RPR provided to you at no charge. So we're right here. We're talking before we even start building. So the first thing you're going to be doing now, you're ready to build, you're going to be talking to a designer. We get phone calls often. Developer phones us, hey, apparently I need a development permit. Do you guys do that? And the answer is we do a portion of it, but surveyors are not your first call. Your first call is a designer or an architect because they handle the entire development permit application. It's a big package. It's a list that you find on the City of Calgary website. It's called the Carl list. It's 7 or 8 pages and a whole bunch of check boxes of what you need to do to start the development process. Part of that, a little part of that is you need a survey. So that's where we would come in. So designer, builder, working together, we get the phone call. It usually sounds something like this. Hey, I'm a builder. You guys do surveys. Just had a meeting with my designer. They're ready for a development permit survey. Do you guys do those? And we go, we'll help you with that. Now, there's 2 types of applications at the city. And if you're going to be developing, you'll get familiar with the 2. There's a contextual application and there's a discretionary application. And that's the first question you're going to get from the land surveyor when you ask them to do a development permit survey. They're going to be like, great, is it contextual or discretionary? And the answer we usually get is, I don't know. And that's normal. So that's the development stage. And we'll eventually go through this timeline in these presentations, but we're just here right now. We're going to just stay on this, and we'll come back to these other lines here. So what contextual means, and you'll hear it as you start developing, is the city has guidelines of how high your building can be that you're proposing, how far forward it can be to the street, and other guidelines. And the question we usually get is, okay, so what is that front setback? And the answer is, it really depends on where your neighbor's setback is on each side, because they are the ones who dictate how much closer you can go. So if all the houses are 8 meters back, you can't build a house that's 2 meters back, because you're gonna stick out and they're gonna complain. That's just the way it works. And you're already dealing with neighbors who may not even want you developing, and now you're sticking out like a sore thumb. You're taking away from their sun, you're casting shadows on their houses and that sort of thing. So they look at where the neighbor's front setback is, and if you're within 5 feet of that, you're within their guidelines, you're within their context, and we're still a contextual. And then the other thing they look at is the height of the neighbor's roofs. So if you're within 5 feet of your neighbor's roofs, you're still within context. Now, if it's a bungalow and a bungalow, and you're building a 2-story, which you probably are, you're guaranteed gonna trigger this because you're gonna be higher than 5 feet than the roof. So that's what the difference between these 2 are. A contextual application, when your designer submits that package to the city, it circulates faster. There's no chance or less chance for any sort of appeal from the neighbors. It's just a smoother transition. So if it's a house and it's duplex on one side and duplex on another side, and you're building a duplex, you're going contextual and it's gonna move pretty quick. Discretionary, you're outside of those guidelines and you're outside of their context, and now you're doing a larger survey. You're looking at more context of what's on that block, and I'll show you what that looks like. Talked about contextual DP. When you phone the survey, that price point, just so you have an idea what we're talking about here, is around $1,500 to do the survey. And it looks like this. So here's your home that you just bought, and you have your neighbor to your left, and you have your neighbor to your right. So these setbacks here determine where your new build can go. There's roof peak information, there's main floor information of your neighbors, and then the side view, basically the windows that are facing onto your lot that the designers want to see, so that a bathroom window doesn't line up with a bathroom window, that sort of thing. So that's a contextual application, and this survey is smaller because we're surveying basically 3 lots total. Make sense? Any questions about contextual stuff, or just let me have at her still?
Oh, trees.
Trees.
Yeah.
Good point. Trees are shown, and sometimes there's trees in the city property. Don't cut those down without talking to the city. There are a lot. And there's a website, City of Calgary has every tree on record. They have a database, and you click on the tree, and it tells you how much it costs if you cut the sucker down. That's like
$35,000.
a lot. And the bigger the tree.
Yeah.
Construction,
35,000.
free protection plan for those.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So be careful of any trees shown in the city property, but anything on your property, have at her. Just cut the sucker. Discretionary development, now we're talking about a larger survey, longer application time, price point around $2,000 now, so about $500 more than the contextual. That's the surveyor's price. The designer's price is, obviously their own pricing. But now look what we're doing here. We're surveying 1 and 2 houses. So the city wants to see 1 and 2 on that way, 1 and 2 that way. Another word that you'll hear as you get more familiar with developing is the word streetscape. Anytime you hear streetscape, it's talking about this thing right here. You're standing on the street and you're looking at the faces of the neighbors' houses, and ultimately where your development's going to go right in here. So that's a streetscape. So if that language comes up, it's not on a contextual, it's only on a discretionary. That's when you know you're dealing with it. And sometimes developers, they just call this a streetscape. It's technically not. This is the block plan, and this is the streetscape. But they say, oh, I'm working with my designer, I just need a streetscape. We know they're talking about this whole thing, but this is actually the actual term for it. Any questions about DP stuff? I mean, it's a big topic, but we're just giving you a snapshot of where surveyors involved. Yes?
So for the contextual, you don't need that front elevation?
That's exactly it. Yeah, exactly. That's a big difference. And so what your designer does, so the deliverable is once we send you the AutoCAD drawing, they give this to the designer, and at this point, the survey takes us about 2 weeks, but design is essentially on hold. I mean, there's a little bit they can do with their design, but they're waiting, and the builder's waiting, and everyone's phoning the surveyors like, oh man, we're waiting for this application. Like, where's the survey? Where's the survey? So if there's any survey that they're always on our asses, it's this one, because the project's on hold and they're paying a mortgage and they want to get started. And the longer you wait, the closer winter comes, the project could get pushed into the spring, and so there's always a time crunch. But what the designer does, they take this drawing, they remove the old house, they show their new house, and then in here, why we leave it blank is they show the new streetscape here of what it's gonna look like. And that's what they submit to the city with a bunch of other documents and a bunch of other forms. But the city wants to see that. So why I'm saying that is because we have builders who take our survey, go straight to the city and says, all right, here's the development permit. And the city's like, that's the house that's there. You're not even showing the new house. And we're like, surveyors do not submit to the city. That's your architect, that's your designer. We're not the guys for that. And so we help, but we give this to the designer. They take it to the finish line. Yes, sir.
So on that RPR, you have elevations there. You guys have those elevations on your RPR, because sometimes RPR is just the site plan, right?
Yeah, so an RPR is not going to show any side elevations.
Like those ones.
Yeah, these ones, yeah,
But
you're
you
right.
guys do those.
That's just
Absolutely.
for their design stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you might have a big living room window here, and I don't know, Marvin, how much they actually try to keep the new windows away from the existing windows.
Recently, not at all.
Yeah, and a lot of designers are like, oh, that looks great, but pff, scrap it, they don't
One
care.
thing that the elevations, I don't know if you're talking about, is the datums.
Yeah.
That's not required in RPR, but you desperately need those.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point. So RPRs are 2-dimensional, whereas these development permits are 3-dimensional. So these are geodetic elevations, basically contouring topography,
Yeah.
and you know the lay of the land. So when they're designing, they know where to set the final grade, how drainage is going to work, and that sort of thing.
Having said that, you will see elevations on an RPR if you're doing something like a backyard suite or a garage, something like that, because you'll want to know the lay of the land back there.
Yeah, there's
For
always
sure.
exceptions. We can
Yeah.
add certain
Yeah.
things to different surveys, but by default,
Yeah.
you wouldn't see it.
One thing you might, we'll just point out quickly because we talked about it on this, I know I'm stepping out of camera, is like property lines are right here, right? And the city sidewalk is here. And driveways and grass and all that all come all the way up usually to the city sidewalk. So this distance here is what homeowners think is theirs, and we'll start building in it, right? But that's why you need a survey to show you where your property lines are, because this can be 10 feet, 15 feet, 6 feet in that. So always just be really, really aware of the city property that traverses through the front of your property.
Question.
Does it ever happen that the survey that carried out, there is an error that has been challenged by somebody else?
Never with us.
We've never made a mistake in our. No, what happens is, generally when there's a question about the survey, my first question is, okay, is there another surveyor involved, or is this just someone misunderstanding the plan? And most times it's just someone misreading the plan, misunderstanding a dimension, a setback, and that sort of thing. As soon as I hear there's another Alberta land surveyor who's questioning our survey, then we reach out to them. I mean, we're pretty much friends with all of them around town. We reach out to them. Why do we have a discrepancy? Oh, one of those metal posts that we found right here, oh, that one was bent, and so it skewed our numbers, or one over here, we didn't use it because we feel like it's heaved over. And so we have those conversations directly with the surveyor. But for the most part, by the time it's delivered to the architect, it's reliable information.
So we worked with you and then everything's good. And then just referring to another project with another surveyor, the city challenged or made a correction, let's put it that way, in the survey. And then so typically then the consultants had to, and the engineers had to go back and revise those drawings as well. So is that common, or is that just one-off case?
I would say luckily it's not that common, but of course it does happen. And one of the hindrances of the metal posts in the ground is that they can get hit and disturbed and moved. And so sometimes we're dealing with moving targets a little bit. But if you find enough of these survey posts, you have a best fit of where everything really is. It's quite rare that the city would challenge a land surveyor, unless it's the Alberta land surveyor who works at the city, because they usually have one on staff. But if it's just a designer questioning our work, I'd be like, you need a little bit more to prove that there's something wrong, because we're basing it off of a field survey. They might be basing it off of parcel mapping, and we're going to win every time if that's the battle. And we do a lot. And so yeah, good questions though. Yes.
Can you go back?
Of course.
So you're showing some of the utilities in the lane there, underground utilities. Does overhead utilities ever come up? Because that is becoming an issue.
It is.
Where they're not on title, but they're set, NMAX has setbacks.
Yeah.
And is that coming, or do we, they treat you like you're a complete idiot, and that you have to know how much wattage is going, or voltage is going through each line, and the setback has to be.
Yeah.
So backyard suites, this can be a huge issue, especially if it's a two-story.
Absolutely.
Because you have to have a setback. If the line's on your side of the alley, there's probably a setback.
Yeah.
We have to then ask NMAX, which is talking.
It's tough.
It's very difficult. They're very difficult. So is that something you can provide?
Yes. Yeah, so what we do, so you're right, you're gonna see underground utility information, and we get that, we order it from the city of Calgary, so it's their database, and it's just line order like here. So you might see a sanitary line, a water line, a gas line. We get that information from the city. We're not out there locating. If you really need to pinpoint it, you can get the locates, but that is shown so we know where we're tying into our water, where we're tying into our sanitary, et cetera. But Marvin's question was, do we show overhead power lines? And now, and we do. We show where the power pole is itself, because the power pole might be right in here and you're planning on putting your garage door right beside it. That's a problem. There's a big power pole in the way. But now, when we know it's going to be a secondary suite, we know NMAX has their setbacks, and the form, we've all seen it where it shows the setbacks and it shows the heights of these wires. We show sometimes the lowest wire and the highest wire. It's usually the highest wire that has the most power, so that's the one that the NMAX is looking at and those setbacks. But that information we try to show on our development permit, because the very thing that Marvin said, we submit it, the city looks at it, they circulate it to utilities, it bounces back, say, hey, nice try, where's our power line, where is it, and why is your building so darn close to it? Well, now it's back to the drawing board, back to survey, and so we just said, screw it, let's just show it, and they can design and work with it. So.
But you'll have the actual setback for the line, or do we have to?
We don't calculate and show the setback, we leave that to you. But it's always it's hard to stay on top of the bylaws and the setbacks, and so a lot of what we present is as-built. This is what's there, and then we expect then we give it to the architect and their expertise, because they know all the rules and all the setbacks. And we work with them, but they're way better at it than we are, without a doubt.
Question about the power lines. So if you have a property and there is no power lines, and they decided to develop a power line, are they able to run it over your property?
So generally, no. So are they able to run a power line over your property? Generally, they're going to keep their poles in the lane, and rarely, but sometimes it's in the front yard, but it's all going to be on city property. If they're, for whatever reason, crossing over your yard, they would actually have to register some sort of utility right away and have your consent. So they're not going to just go ahead and build and run a power line over your
Do I
property.
have the right to not consent?
Probably not. But they're pretty good at staying in the lane. Are you talking from experience right now? Okay. Because that'd be we don't see it too much, but I would say they would legally. I think they would have to get your consent because they're taking part of your land now and they're putting a right of way, and you're restricted now from doing a garage suite because there's this lousy right of way cutting over your property. Okay, so how do we build a house, and when do surveyors get involved? That's really what this slide is. We're talking about development here. Now we got our approval, city's happy, utilities are happy, it's done its circulation, we're ready to break ground. We start with the excavation, of course, and the first survey that you're gonna need is a stakeout. So these cost around $600. Usually what these phone calls sound like is, hey, I got my excavator on site. They're asking for a survey or something? Like, where do we dig the hole? So, okay, you forgot to order the stakeout. Not steak house, because we get that sometimes. Like, hey, I need a steakhouse. So, well, there's Earl's and there's the keg. If you're talking about staking out your house, get a surveyor. The nice thing is that we can get there within a day or two. But the excavators, they're going to be, and we'll go through this is a real example here, and we'll just walk you through the stages here. They're going to be looking for that. So excavation first, and again, I have photos for all this that we'll go over quickly. Then once the hole is dug, start pouring the foundation walls. Then we start getting into main floor and constructing the actual building. Get your roof on, complete your project, final RPR. What does that all look like in the world of a surveyor? All right, let's look at a real life example. This is a multiplex, I think it's an 8 or a 12-plex in Ogden. We thought it was a pretty cool project. We use this one as an example because there was an old barn here from probably early 1900s. And if I'm not mistaken, I do a lot of projects, but if I'm not mistaken, this developer did not know that this barn had to stay because it had some sort of heritage status. So he's like, again, I've seen several of these, but I think this is the one where he's like, we have to develop around that stupid barn and we actually have to restore it and have it as part of the project. So we thought this was a pretty cool project to share. You probably won't run into this, but that barn is still there and it's not that far from here. And you can see this project, we're almost done it. So this was the original site and the original barn. This is the discretionary development permit. Discretionary because it's a multiplex. Anytime you're 3+ units, no matter what, no matter how high your roof peaks are of your neighbors, you're a 3-unit development or more, you're falling into a discretionary. Yes?
So these don't need the city compliance?
No. So city compliance was before you bought it. The city compliance was just your lot, you're buying the lot, it's a real property report. This is a larger survey now. We need to know where the neighbors are, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't submit this for a city compliance. They'll only accept it if it's titled real property report. This is titled development permit survey or development permit plan. Yeah. But they definitely review them. They review these more than they do in RPR, that's for sure. So here's our original lot. You might be wondering, well, there's 2 houses here, where's the 2 on the other side? Well, you only have to do 2 on the block face because this is a street here. Regardless, it's still a discretionary application, still a discretionary survey. That drawing then gets sent to the designer. Like I mentioned, they take the existing information and they superimpose their design. They put together the package. They put together the elevation views, the main floors and the roof peaks, all the building drawings. They do the bulk of the work. We basically, at this point, we're just waiting for that phone call from the excavator. So this circulates for a good 8 months at the city to get all of the approvals. But eventually we get an approval, and with that comes permission to demolish the old house. So this email will be sent to you, and you'll get one of these that has to go on the construction fence, and you can begin to go to work where your excavators are here waiting for you. Sign is now on your fence somewhere, and we're ready to break ground. Order the stakeout. Like I said, $600, you get a surveyor out there. What do? They go and they place stakes, and they basically say 2 meters from this point, start digging. 2 meters from that point, start digging. They'll lay 4 to 8 points. This is how deep you dig to get to the bottom of that footing, so when you construct it, your main floor is right where you want it. And you see the stakes come over in these photos here. And excavators know how to read them, and they start digging their hole. In a week or two, when the excavation's done, your site now looks like this, and the cribbers are on site, and then we get the phone call, hey, I need you to pin the corners because we want to start forming the footings. So we come on site, this is about a $400 survey, we pin the actual corners in the hole, they come with all their forms and they start forming the footings so they can get ready for concrete. Makes sense? If you've built a house, this is very elementary. But I do this because I get phone calls and they're just like, what's all the surveys involved? And this is essentially what I answer them, but this one has photos, so it's nicer. Then the footings are done, they've poured the concrete, and some developers, builders, will want just to be sure to have us come back out and pin the actual corners now on top of the footings so that they can start forming their basement walls exactly as per design. At this stage, we're checking the excavation depth. We're making sure that nothing has gone wrong. We're still on design, and there's checks and balances in place.
Just a question, Rail.
Sorry.
Is that another $400 if you're coming
Yeah,
to
exactly. So some builders forego the first one. I mean, if it's a rectangular home, they might skip the first one and do the second, or vice versa. Look at all the jogs on this one though. For $400, it's better than having your cribbers running around in circles charging you for it. So we come out, and some builders, it's just every single time they're like, it's worth it, it's worth it, it's worth it. Others are doing their own thing, and it ends up being okay, and we're happy with it, but not every builder uses it. Then we're not back until the main floor has been constructed, and the city's going to want to see a main floor certificate. So if this is 2 feet high, we have a problem. And so they want to see that certificate so that you can keep building. Now, if you forget to order the main floor, that's totally fine. Eventually, you'll need to do it at the final inspection. But it's nice to make sure it's built at the right height before you go all the way to the roof. Then survey's done for a while. We'll come back in whatever it is, a year and a half, depending on the size of the project. And we just come back and we shoot the roof peak. That's kind of like the last survey in terms of construction goes. That, again, is a form that needs to be submitted to the city for their approval, and your roof peak gets approved. And then the landscaping, the concrete, the fences all get constructed. And as per your final inspection, the city's going to want to see the final real property report with compliance. So now it's done. Everything looks how it is on design. We send it to the city. We get compliance. They find certain little items. There's a list sometimes. Oh, you didn't finish this window well, or you didn't finish these stairs, or whatever. And we address those so that we can get the RPR completed. Now this is ready to, well, sell, or whatever the case may be, whatever the developer wants to do. Start renting it out, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of the survey timeline. If there's any questions, by all means. If not, well, I think just a couple more slides.
One of the comments there says window cells on the west face
Or larger than approved.
larger than approved.
Yeah.
Like, do they measure the window cells?
Yeah, so the final inspector will walk around. I don't know if all of them pull out pocket tapes, but in this case, it definitely stood out to them. But to our relaxation conversation, these window wells were too big. I think they either applied for a relaxation, or if the developer's like, no, we don't have time for that, let's just remove and replace, and sometimes they do that. But these are small items on a multi-million-dollar project. They're like, okay, fine, we can tweak the window well to get it to the city's satisfaction. Then the other survey that might be involved is, now the question is, do you want to rent this thing out and keep it on the current title, which in this case they are, or do you want to condominiumize it and sell and create 10, 12 individual units to sell to individual buyers? If that's the case, then we're looking at condominiums. And again, it's another circulation at the city. You really can't start your condo until you're at your roof stage anyways, so the developer has time to determine the market and if they want to condominiumize it. But that's where surveyors come in again.
Yeah.
2 single infills
Sorry.
or a duplex. Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that only for Bearland condos or any type of condos you guys are helping?
Any type of condo. Yeah, bare land or building condo. And there's intricacies and differences of those two, but for the most part, it's the same outcome. There's a condo corporation, there's condo fees, there's a reserve fund, all that sort of thing.
And what would you guys, as surveyors, have to do with that part of the process?
It really depends if it applies to be a bare land or a conventional. You're talking about the difference between the two,
No,
or just in general? Okay.
So let's say someone's
Yep.
building a townhouse
Yep.
or a 3-story,
Yep.
apartment, and they're like, let's economize this.
For sure.
Like there would be other things preventing them from being able to actually do that because they don't have proper HVAC, that they don't have the proper insulation, so.
Well, yeah.
Like at that stage, it would be a little bit too late when, like,
Well,
trying to figure out when you guys would be involved or it could actually make a difference.
Exactly. And in terms of the final end game, like the developer would know majority of the time. So they know if they're going to end up being condos that they have to have the proper HVAC, they have to have the proper services. So for us, we just leave that with the developer. You guys, like in this case, they know they want to rent it out for 10 years and then condominiumize it. But they don't want to condominiumize it now because you have 10 titles, 10 property taxes, 10 this, 10 this, 10 this. And so they want to keep it like this. We know it's built to be condominiumized.
Right, yeah.
And then fast forward in 10 years, they phone us and we go in, we measure the interior spaces, we make this drawing look like a condo plan that gets accepted at the city, that gets accepted at land titles, and the outcome is 12 new titles, and then they go sell, 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 sell. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had put that in there just because I've heard of a lot of the MLI Select financing and the different point systems, so thought it was a really good consideration for anybody that's looking at developing, because exactly like you said, if it's something that you do want to sell down the road, you can plan to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And if this were two single infills, like two skinny infill single homes, or if it was a duplex, similar, except instead of a condo plan, it's just a subdivision. We're basically scribing a line through the existing lot and creating Title I and Title II. So it's a little bit simpler, but essentially that subdivision survey is going to be somewhere in here. Usually we start at the main floor stage. You're at the main floor already, you haven't started splitting your lots into two. You kind of get started at that stage because it takes about 4 to 6 months to subdivide. By then you're getting closer to building your home, etc. What you don't want to do is get to the end of your duplex and then find out after the fact, oh shoot, we should have started a subdivision, and then you're waiting 8 months with a duplex that's ready to be sold, but you can't sell it to two sellers because there's only one title. And that happens more than it should. But anyway, so that wraps up with the construction timeline. We're going to talk quickly about interior measurements, unless there's any other last questions for me, but Tim's going to take it from here. There you go.
Sure, sounds good. So another service that we provide as land surveyors is internal as-built measuring services. And I just got to pick on you again, Marvin. Marvin does a lot of great developments where they're doing a renovation in the home. They're not tearing it down, right? And so they will call up somebody and say, hey, we don't have any plans for this home. And so what are we going to do, right? And that's usually when your architect, your designer will say, well, there are companies in town that do internal measurements. Now that is not, what we're doing is we're not doing like an RMS measurement. This is not like a small real estate measurement. Here's the size of the room, here's the size of all these other rooms in that, and here's your total square footage. We're doing a full as-built, so what's there is construction, interior and exterior survey. So you can see like we've got great detail of stairs, we do windows, exact dimensions of doors, roofs, material types, etc. We did a great log cabin for Marvin, I don't know, about a year ago or so. And these are homes where you'd go bonkers if you're in there with like a piece of pad paper, right? And maybe a little laser like this trying to do dimensions. So our we use laser scanners that will create a very detailed laser scan of this entire home. That gets put into a 3D drawing, that goes to your designer, your architect, and they take that and start tearing down walls, moving walls, and making it fit to whatever you guys want to do, right? So usually this is going to happen if you're going to do renovations inside your home, doing maybe even a basement suite development or something like that. Larger commercial buildings, we have this in there just to showcase kind of what it looks like. This was, what's the name of this building downtown?
The Bank of Montreal, First Canadian Place?
Yeah, old Bank of Montreal building downstairs, like, I don't know, 60 stories tall, downtown Calgary. Man, if you have office space in here, it is sweet. They've got like pickleball, pool, TVs upstairs. They're doing different things here, cafeteria, etc. And their designer said, there's no way we're going in here and measuring this. So can you guys complete laser scanning of it? So we did. You can see what a 3D drawing looks like. And that's a huge one, right? And that gets sent again to a designer. So surveyors do this type of work, and it's mostly because you're going to do a renovation in your home and not a complete teardown. Any questions? A little last example, I believe, of this one. Small home we did, and for a client doing a renovation again, and they're getting things like this: floor plans, detailed floor plans of what's going on in their home right now so that they can start designing. All right, looking at a lemon. This is like our favorite part. And I'll let any of you guys jump in at any point because we all know these ones pretty well. So we discussed the importance of getting an RPR if you're looking at a property, especially if you're going to buy it for any reason. And in this case, this was a developer. So I believe it was like his realtor and a developer working together. And we're in Bowness, and maybe they're cruising down the street, and they're like, hey, this property is for sale. So let's take a look at it. So they call us up and they say, and they did this the right way. They call us and say, hey, we're looking at this property, and we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to get an RPR. Now they know, like, hey, we're going to tear this thing down, but they still want to know where the structures are on property and what's going on. So we go out, they pay the $500. We go out and we do an RPR, and you can see, and I'll point out what's going on here. The yellow here is the property lines of this property, right? And remember when I talked about fences not being on property line? So when you look at this picture, right, it looks like, oh great, yeah, that's the lot, everything's kosher, it's fine. But when you do the RPR, it actually reveals what's going on property. That's why no matter if you're doing a tear down or just an investment property or even just a simple real estate transaction, you absolutely want an RPR because it reveals these kinds of things. So you can see the neighbor's adjacent carport on your property, his fence on your property, adjacent garage on your property, your garage on the neighbor's property, your fence on the neighbor's property, and so on. So this land, everything's shifted over, and we can get into why it is, and Rael can explain it also. But this land basically becomes what? Undevelopable.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like
a lemon.
A lemon. It's a lemon, right? So maybe he was going to put 2 or 4 there or something like that, but he spent $500, got an RPR, saw that, and walked away, right? In this case, the developer was extremely excited to see this RPR because he could just wash his hands of it and say, no way, I'm not buying this property. I'm so glad that I got an RPR. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
No, just the whole block, right? It was an area in the West End. It's the whole
Sure.
block is offset. It starts at one property, moves over a little bit. So, it's not something that you can sit on and kind of wait. And basically what happens is, all those buildings that are encroaching on your property still have the setbacks required by the city of Calgary, right?
Yeah.
So you're just completely decreasing the footprint that you can build on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you might be thinking like, okay, I'll do 2 units here, and the city is going to want a 4-foot side yard, right, between your house and the property line, and they're expecting that there's a 4-foot side yard between this adjacent carport. Well, now you can't do that because your neighbor's there, and he's encroaching onto your property, and the city's not going to get involved with that because that's a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute. They don't own that property. They're not going to do anything there. And as Janet mentioned, this property encroaches, and it just goes down like 7 lots that all encroach a little bit more as you go down the block onto each other. So this whole block, you'd have to buy like all 7 properties, tear them all down, and put up something great. We love to show this slide because this is a real life example, and this happens in Calgary. And lots of times infills are built in like mature areas like this, right? And so make sure you get a survey.
What's the solution?
Don't buy it.
No, not for this.
I mean, like, I don't know what you would do.
The solution, if they wanted to reach a solution, the neighbors would have to all agree to all pitch in and do a subdivision and just adjust all of those boundaries. Now, the one on the end might be adjust the boundary. So we would basically move the yellow onto the fences.
Onto where the fences, yeah.
So there is a solution, but you're ready to build, you don't want to get into that.
Yeah, you don't want to buy it and then find out.
And then you have to get 7 other people on board, and you might have an old fart on the end who's just like, no, and you're stuck, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. More moving forward in time, so this is probably what, 1980s, 1990s build? Something like that?
When it was built, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in this case, duplex here, the owner bought this property in about 2000, and guess what she did not do? Did not get a real property report. Bought it, rented it out. Fortunately on this one, she owned both sides. And then probably 2 years ago, she decided, you know what, market's great, I'm gonna sell. And so, of course, she put it on the market. Her realtor suggested you get an RPR. We did an RPR. And in this case, the party wall, which should be going through the center of the property, is actually running through this side of the property by about 10 feet, I believe it is.
5 feet.
5 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, about 5 feet there. So this whole time, they're thinking like they have even space between the 2 lots. So let's say it was 30 and 30. Well, that's not the case since the build. So if you were trying to sell this to individual buyers, right, one's getting 35, the other one's getting 25. So this becomes a huge problem and a big lemon. And the city said, well, this is where your subdivision line is supposed to be, right? But this is where it is. And so they actually, I believe it was a mandatory subdivision?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mandatory subdivision to move this property line back on the property wall. And
In order
move
to
forward.
get compliance.
Yeah.
You could leave it as is, but if you want them to put that blue compliance stamp, move that property line to the center of that party wall.
Exactly.
And so, and the problem is she had already sold both sides. So it became like a lawyer nightmare. It's like, oh, why did you sell these so soon? Like,
Yeah.
So now you're convincing one guy, okay, I'm sorry, I know we told you you're getting 30 feet. You're actually getting 25 now. And he's like, well, you owe me money. And they're like, oh, shoot, I guess so. Now they're talking about finances, and the other person who has 35 feet, they're like, I don't want to pay anything. And it just, you can imagine. So.
Yeah, it became a, let's just say we got emails from lawyers asking for all of our emails to this homeowner, documentation, etc. So something you want to stay away from. And how did this get revealed? They got an RPR. How did they not know it beforehand? They didn't get an RPR. All right.
So if it wasn't clear.
So yeah, it's just very low cost to reveal something that could be a major, major problem, right?
All right, so we're gonna make this one a little bit fun. This is actually out of our Edmonton office. So this is a commercial property that was purchased, and there is an encroachment. You can see right there, these wood planters right here are encroaching into the street. So I've got a gift card that I would love to send somebody, and I want to start to hear some ideas of how much you think the city of Edmonton wants to charge for those garden beds, for the encroachment fee. Just yell out some numbers. Higher.
1,500.
10 grand.
Higher.
25.
Higher. Higher.
75.
Oh.
Too high. So higher than 65?
70.
73.
There it
All
is.
right.
It was his property.
Right?
Yeah, well, you want to go to the next
Yeah,
slide?
you bet.
It is right here, $73,972 plus GST plus your $500 application fee. So the buyer went and ripped it out, right? And it became a $0 charge for that.
Yeah.
It was it 3 feet only? It was nothing. It was just a tiny little encroachment. Now, this is a very, very extreme. The most we see is usually around, someone mentioned 1,500. That's usually kind of the highest.
That's about the max, yeah.
A normal is 500. So when we saw this, it was absolutely hilarious. We're like, this is making some PowerPoint of some presentation we're doing, and now we get to do it. So.
No, exactly.
And there was no trees.
No trees, just this.
Like, can you believe it?
Yeah, it's definitely not a $73,000 or $72,000 garden bed.
So they
Absolutely
paid some guy $73 to just go with a crowbar, knock it over, and 10 minutes later it's gone, and then next thing you know you have compliance and no encroachment. You're like, wow, that was so ridiculous. But we think it's funny, so that's why we want to share it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The stairs are okay.
And the stairs are okay because there was a previous encroachment.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're just doing like, oh, it's like you've been warned once, we gave you one encroachment, now the second one we're gonna ding the crap out of you. But regardless, yeah, the awning and the concrete landing, the real features can stay, no problem.
So the property line there is the face of the building?
It sure
Yes,
looks like it.
yes, face of the building.
Right there.
Which is not uncommon for some old commercial. This is probably built early 1900s kind of thing. Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't get dinged for accessibility or something.
Well, yeah. Well, exactly. The only accessibility is the stairs on city property, but they're okay with that. But that wood planter, I tell you. So yeah. So thanks for removing it.
Sorry, Calgary doesn't like stairs on city.
That's a good point.
They don't.
In
No.
Calgary, they probably would have focused more on that and less on the planter. You got it.
You're allowed to encroach onto city property if you have a driveway or a sidewalk leading to an entrance. I should say a driveway leading to like a garage entrance, because they understand you got to get from your road up into your house. But if you put concrete on city property in any other form, then it's absolutely an encroachment. So, yeah. So it's always pay us some money or remove it. All right.
That's it.
Any final questions? I think we're on our last slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll stick around, take any final questions. We absolutely loved our time here with you guys. Great questions, great crowd. So we'll be here till the last person leaves, probably.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.